The greatest madmen the world has ever seen. People and traits you won't want to believe are waiting for you in this video. Now, we're about to take a short but slightly unsettling journey through the dusty pages of history. But this journey is not the story of kings, heroes, or great wars. This journey is the story of people who left their mark on history, who are world famous, and who often make us say, "This can't be real." Some went mad because of power, some because of intelligence, some because of fear, and some because of loneliness. If you're ready, let's begin. Our first stop is the Roman Empire, because at the very top of this list, there is always Caligula, Rome's most famous madman. Caligula was not an ordinary tyrant. The man genuinely believed he was a god. And the interesting part is this: no one could say, "No, you're not a god," because anyone who did was executed. He tried to appoint his horse as a senator. Yes, an actual horse. The palace was full of fear, intrigue, and unimaginable depravity. People survived depending on his mood. Historians still debate this today. Was Caligula truly insane, or did he lose his mind at the peak of power? Now we move on to a completely different kind of madness. Nikola Tesla. At this point, the word madness needs to be reconsidered, because Tesla was a genius who changed the world, but at the same time he had incredible obsessions. He refused to shake hands with people. He hated germs. He did everything 3 times. The strangest part? He had an extreme love for pigeons. It is said that when one of them died, he went into deep mourning. Tesla may not have been mentally ill, but he definitely wasn't a man of this world. He was a man living in the future. Our third name feels like it came straight out of a fairy tale: King Ludwig II of Bavaria. He is the architect of the famous castle you see in the Disney logo today. But that castle was actually Ludwig's escape from the real world. He lived alone in his palace and watched operas at night when no one else was around. He ignored state affairs. He lived in his imagination. Eventually, he was declared mentally ill and removed from the throne. Shortly after, he died under mysterious circumstances. To this day, no one knows exactly what happened. Now, things get a bit darker. Vlad the Impaler, also known as Vlad Tepes, the inspiration behind the Dracula legend. He impaled his enemies on stakes and displayed them for days. For him, this was not just punishment, but a message. He ruled through fear. In his time, being his enemy was worse than death. Was Vlad truly insane, or was he simply the most ruthless strategist of his era? History is still unclear. As we move closer to the modern age, madness begins to change its form. Howard Hughes is the clearest example of this. Billionaire, filmmaker, pilot, but also a man who stayed locked in his room for years. He never cut his nails or washed his hair. He was so afraid of germs that he completely cut off contact with people. He had money, he had power, but his mind built its own prison. The 6th name is Napoleon Bonaparte, a military genius, an emperor, but also a massive ego. He believed he was invincible. He spent hours over maps, planning imaginary battles. The belief that "I cannot lose" dragged him into the Russian campaign and ended in disaster. He may not have been insane, but he was certainly a megalomaniac. The 7th name is the tragedy of art, Vincent van Gogh. A life filled with suffering, mental breakdowns, loneliness, poverty. Cutting off his ear is still talked about today. During his lifetime, he sold only 1 painting. Today, his works are worth fortunes. Perhaps the most painful question is this: was Van Gogh insane, or was he simply never understood? In 8th place is Ivan the Terrible, Russia's first Tsar, known for his violent outbursts, so severe that in a moment of rage he killed his own son. He lived in constant fear of conspiracies. He ordered torture. The state itself turned into a machine of fear alongside his psychological collapse. The ninth name is strange but quite entertaining. Tycho Brahe, a great astronomer, but also a man who lost his nose in a duel. He replaced it with a golden one. He kept a dwarf fortune teller in his home. At banquets, he would hold his bladder to avoid leaving the table, and it is even said that he sometimes urinated right there. One of the strangest figures in the history of science. And finally, Marquis de Sade, a man who lived so extremely that his name became a concept: sadism. His writings were considered demonic for their time. He spent most of his life in prisons and mental asylums, a form of madness that disturbed society and pushed boundaries. When we look at all these names, we see this. Madness sometimes comes from power, sometimes from genius, sometimes from fear, and sometimes from loneliness. And history never forgets these people. So which one do you think is truly crazy?